All right, at this point we're going to go ahead and try to graph both the cosecant and the secant functions. So you can see that I just picked a few values of sine, and since sine and cosecant are reciprocals, I just basically flip them. So if I flip 0, I get something that's undefined, and 1/2 I flip, I get 2. Square root of 2 over 2 flips and actually gives you the square root of 2. And the square root of 3 over 2, when it's flipped, gives you 2 over the square root of 3. And I put the decimal equivalents of those so we can have an idea. You should notice that none of the values for cosecant are less than 1. And really, if you understand how graphs of reciprocals look, what's going to happen is the reciprocal of 1 is 1, but as the black line gets lower and lower, the reciprocal will get higher and higher until it gets to 0, because the reciprocal of 0 is an asymptote. Same thing's going to happen here. Same thing's going to happen here. So I go up, up, and away. Here I'm negative, so anytime you flip a negative, it's still going to be negative, and it's just going to look like that. And same thing here. So the values that I get, the 2, 1.41, 1.15, all that will be very similar. So you're just going to keep getting this flipped looking thing. One of the things I forgot to tell you in the last video is if we have a period for sine and cosine that's 2 pi, then the period for secant and cosecant are also going to be 2 pi. But for tangent and cotangent, because they repeat more quickly, their period is actually only going to be pi. So that's something I left out of the last video. All right. So let's go ahead and look at what cosine is going to look like. So again, I have the cosine video there, or the cosine graph. And when I start looking at reciprocals, it's going to look very, very similar to what we just did with cosecant. It's going to be going up where it's positive. It's going to be an asymptote where cosine is 0. And where it's negative, we're going to be going down. So I'm going to get something that looks a little bit more like that. So basically, just like tangent and cotangent looked very similar, just kind of moved and a little bit flipped, the same thing is going to be true here. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in chapter 5, that each of the cofunctions is basically just a shift and a flip of each of the regular functions. So that's all I'm going to do for this section, and hopefully that answers any questions.